Hello, and welcome back to the Audible Waters podcast. I'm your host, Ralph Jesperson. I have seen considerable confusion in the part of the church I grew up in regarding just how to receive specific guidance and instruction from the Lord. As a part of that confusion, an entire network of what is called prophetic conferences and other related meetings have sprung up where people think the way to do this is to do what is essentially a Christian version of fortune telling. You go to a meeting that either requires you pay a substantial fee to attend, or you donate a love offering to a traveling fortune teller who claims to have special revelation from God and will exchange that for the share of the mammon he gets from the pot, regardless of how the money is collected. They claim that this is New Testament prophecy, which it is most certainly not. You will not find anyone doing anything close to that in our Bible. There is prophecy that happens, according to our scriptures, but never in exchange for money. Just ask this question to any AI. Die warning on prophets exchanging prophecy for money. What comes back is proof that in the earliest church writings after the apostles all died, it was a set rule for quickly determining false prophets going around ministering to churches, meeting in houses. The simple rule, if they asked for money, they were false prophets. But we completely lost that wisdom in our modern day. If you want false prophecy that confuses and might wreck your life, just go to one of these prophetic meetings. Likely you will not be the one called out by the prophet, which would be a blessing, but if you are, the false prophecy you receive will be a curse because they always are. The assertion that this is early church ministry is an absolute lie of the devil. So, what does the real leading of the Lord look like, and how does it happen? First, you have to start with seeking God's face yourself. He is just as capable of speaking to you as anyone else, for he said that his sheep hear his voice, and a stranger they will not follow. Those that follow the stranger, then, by this same logic, do not hear Jesus' voice themselves. It is very simple. A few times I had had dreams that later proved for certain that God was giving me clear direction for the future. I have done that and I have heard from God directly. So far, I have never received accurate prophecy from anyone else. I'm not claiming that specifically what works for me will work for everyone. God is capable of speaking in many ways. It may not look like how I get the revelation, but you can hear his voice if you devote yourself to doing so. It does not work for the double minded or the lazy. It takes a continuing amount of focus, time, and energy. But God knows how to speak to each one of us, if it is important enough for us to want it. So here is the first one of those dreams I share today, for it gave me an important date years in advance that something was going to happen on. Here are the details. I had this dream on April 22nd, 2008. I dreamed that I had gone back to the Phoenix area and was renting out a house to live in because I had found a job down there. I was having a discussion with the landlord who was showing the house. I said that I needed to be there and move in on Tuesday, December 12th. He corrected me and told me that December 12th was a Wednesday. Then I noticed that the front window was broken and needed repair. I was looking over the condition of this house when I woke up. I was unemployed at the time, so this dream had impact. And so I focused on the date as I decided to see what the next year would be that had December 12th fall on a Wednesday. I soon discovered that 2012 was the next time that was going to happen. This made the date 12, 12, 12. Three twelves in that date made me wonder if it was a symbolic date, such that at the right time in the future this would happen, or if the literal date was a day that something important regarding a job would happen. There was nothing else I could do with this, so I kept it in the back of my mind. No paying jobs were forthcoming. Then 2012 came, and I thought that I would at least find out if the literal date would mean something. I could not even be sure if this was God giving me direction for my future or if it was just me wanting to find employment badly enough for it to pop up in a dream. Then December came and I was paying attention to my calendar, but the day came and passed without incidents as far as I could see. I thought then that this date meant nothing, and maybe the whole dream really meant nothing either. But then around Christmas time, I got a phone call from my brother. He told me that our mother's health had declined significantly, and on December 12th, he was forced to put her into a nursing home. My brother also told me that he was having trouble cleaning out her trailer as he was getting depressed every time he went over there. Then I knew what the dream meant. God did have a job for me, but not in the normal sense as we think of it. My mother left an empty trailer that was exceedingly dirty. All of the things inside needed to be packed up and donated, sold, or moved elsewhere. My mother was still paying substantial rent and utilities for a place that no one was living in. And so I ended up booking a flight for February and traveled back and stayed for a week and a half, which proved just long enough for me to completely clean the inside and pack away all of the belongings. Hence, it was now ready for sale. But this did not end the unnecessary expenses that were still coming out of my mom's retirement money. A little earlier, my dad had died and left a dirty, cluttered big house that was fully paid off. No one was living in this place either. Then my brother had to sell his wife's house as she went into an assisted living place because of dementia. He hauled more stuff into Dad's house in order to sell the other. Then we hauled off some things from Mom's trailer that we did not donate, and that piled up at Dad's house too. So now Mom's trailer's expenses went away, but she was still paying for utilities and property taxes for somewhere else no one else was living in. So I thought about the broken glass in my dream, showing I was going to stay in a place that needed repair. And boy, did it ever need repair. For example, the carpet was all original 1967 stuff. So the short of it is that we left our own home empty and went and stayed in my dad's house for 7 months in the coolest weather. There was so much work to do that we only got it half done, so we did it again in the following fall. After 14 months of work, it was ready for sale as well. So, some years passed after the sale of that home, which was used for my mother's ongoing care, and the next job related dream came to me. I had a dream where I was back in the church that I grew up in again. I pay attention to those as periodically those come to me, seeing that place again. My brother still is attending that church. I saw a man and his wife in the dream who were once youth leaders of mine back so very long ago. But now they were missionaries to Thailand. So I walked up to them and started having a conversation with them. As a part of that, a discussion about a job came up. Then I woke up. Because of the 12, 12, 12 dream, I paid close attention and discerned instantly that God had something for me to do in the future. by the next time I actually saw this man again in this church. The last time I had seen him was at a family memorial service held at that church. Now, when I had this dream, my sister in law's condition was getting worse. I knew that eventually her dementia would take her out of this world, and I figured that would be the next most obvious time I would run into him at that place. So I filed that away and waited. The years passed before my brother told me that he had put her into hospice, and I figured that the time was getting near. But she was in there for a very long time. Seemed like it was over 1 year. During that time, my brother let it slip to me that he was now head deacon at the church, which raised red flags with me. My brother is a convicted and self admitted child molester and should never be in any position of any authority over anyone, ever, anywhere. So I asked him about what that meant. The main problem is that it involved him being head over the visitation ministry. Anyone out there who is a woman or has been sexually assaulted want my brother to come visit you when you are sick in the hospital? I thought so. This is an abomination to God. I pleaded with my brother to retire and give that up, but no, he continues to be a very proud and stubborn man. Even after spending 5 years in prison, it has not humbled him. This is a very sad reality for me. At that point, it became painfully obvious what the job was, as my brother had also told me that their longtime pastor had retired and that this man I saw in the dream was currently at that time appointed as the temporary pastor as they looked for a permanent hireling. He was not yet in that position at the time I had the dream. I knew for sure I would run into him at the memorial service that was coming soon. It was plain as could be that God wanted me to confront the pastor and convince him to force my brother into retirement from this abominable position he was placed in. To make another long story short, I had the opportunity to see this man with my brother when they all came up in the winter to stay at what was my sister in law's house. There we exchanged emails, and I started the process of making known to him my track record with prophetic things and then being direct in an email about what actually needed to happen with my brother, which I did after she died and right before the service was happening. His response was horrific. 4. He did the Darvo thing, trying to change the subject and suggesting that I was the one with the problem. So in my mind, he took Jesus Christ's mercy and stomped all over it and gave God the middle finger as he suggested that this ministry position for my brother was a good thing, letting my brother redeem himself. I do not have words for how awful and godless this missionary man is. I lost all respect for him, and it made me think of the words of Jesus talking about the great lengths that the Pharisees would go to in order to win just a single convert. The result, according to the king himself, was that the convert would become double the son of hell as the one who converted him. This man is just a snake. No excuse for his wicked behavior. After the service, I pleaded with my brother directly to retire once again, with no avail, and I warned him of the consequences of disobedience to God. He ignored it, and shortly thereafter broke both of his ankles in quick succession. Now he has pins in them and limps around. This is a warning to the rest of us. for there is always consequences when we refuse to repent from doing something like this. I mean, for the love of God, even the complete pagans know that you do not put a child molester in charge of a hospital visitation. Only a worshiper of Satan would do such a cruel thing. So, the first job that God gave me was not unpleasant at all. I was so ready to do something at that point in time. My wife enjoyed a break from her job too. I was doing something that had to be done, and I got to snowbird for 2 winters as a breakaway from the snow where I lived back then. It was good for everyone involved, and it is one type of job that God has for each of us to do. The second was very different and highly unpleasant, a job that should not have to be done. My brother does know better, and it is a sign of a broken conscience, a man who has no fear of God whatsoever. The same is true of the temporary pastor man. This is another kind of job God has for us, the unpleasant task that needs someone to step up to the plate and do it. Most Christians I know, I would doubt, would actually do something like this, and that is also a bad sign. The type of religious people who killed Jesus are still with us today. There are many of them, and they need to be confronted with the truth. They are abusive snakes without conscience. They neither love nor do they fear God. They are as unpleasant as hell to deal with, but if no man confronts them, then they just keep going on in their highly criminal ways. After that, I got another dream where I saw myself doing a particular job I have never done before, but I will in the future. The job I saw myself doing is not unpleasant in itself as far as the actual work involved, but because it will be needed to be done is itself a highly unpleasant thing. There are terrible times coming in the future for the U.S. I have specifics, but this video is not the time nor the place for the details. But I will again be doing a job that someone has to do that should not have to be done. This is because of the fallen nature of what claims to be Jesus Christ's church today. It is overall a horrid cesspool, a giant mound of hypocrisy that leverages the claimed authority of God to abuse people around and about it, both without and within. This abuse is increasing and will come to a head. When that happens, some will hate in most obvious ways, and others will practice love. It will become obvious to all who follows Christ in reality and who are just little devils running around in sheep's clothing, while they devour people without the slightest conscience. I do not look forward to this job, but I will do a job of charity in hopes that our churches, at least a few, will be cleansed of their unrepentant immorality, idolatry, and other sins. Those are the 3 dreams I've had to date about jobs in the future. I share these in the hopes that it gives clarity to the fact that any one of us can get specific direction from God in advance, but you need to be willing to do unpleasant jobs for God. There are plenty of examples in the scriptures where men in our Bible were called to do difficult and even dangerous jobs. Do not just go looking for some pie in the sky idealized calling. Some of the jobs that God is calling you to do will be pleasant, but not all of them. He has considerable problems finding anyone to do the unpleasant work. Be that type of person who will obey Jesus regardless of the cost. There is great reward in heaven for that. The false prophets are making ungodly gain by going around and flattering people and giving them positive prophecies of how wonderful the future is going to be for them. This is complete BS. Look at the actual writings of any of the prophets in our Bible. None of them did that. In the New Testament, Agabus is famous for foretelling two very negative events. Jesus foretold very negative events. John, in the last book, gives highly negative messages of the future. This is New Testament prophecy, not the garbage people like John Mark Baker hands out like candy in exchange for large sums of cash. So, in closing, you might wonder if I have any other dates that have been shown to me. I had one given to me just before I shared the first dream in an email years ago. I have just one still, which is way off in the future. It is August 15th, 2055. The date was given to me in a dream where I saw my mother and my grandmother. One told me not to fear the date. The other told me that that is the date that cleansing will be complete. That date is just past my 90th birthday, if I make it that far. Given the age I will be, it might suggest something obvious on that date, such as my expiration date. But it could point to something outside myself, something bigger in this world. I only have to survive another 30 years to find out.